Hi, I'm Kelsey from RTINGS.com. Today we'll be doing a review of the glorious Model O- wireless. We'll be evaluating on our standardized test bench and see how it performs and if you should buy it. The glorious Model O- wireless is an ultra lightweight gaming mouse with symmetrical shape. It's a wireless version of the glorious Model O-, which is a scaled down version of the original glorious Model O. It's very similar to its predecessors, but it does make several noteworthy changes. The glorious Model O- wireless looks nearly identical to the wired version of the glorious Model O-. It has a strip of RGB lighting on either side, two side buttons on the left, and a dedicated CPI button behind the scroll wheel. Unlike the wired version, there aren't any honeycomb cutouts on the left or right click buttons. There are white and black color variants available. Previous versions offered both glossy and matte coating variants, but this mouse is only available with a matte coating texture. Now we'll take a look at the tests. Let's start with the weight. With a lighter mouse, you can make faster movements. This can give you an advantage in reaction-based games and first-person shooters. On the other hand, you may prefer a heavier, more comfortable mouse for other genres. This glorious Model O- wireless is extremely lightweight. Despite the added weight of the rechargeable battery and wireless connectivity, it's only 5 grams heavier than the wired glorious Model O-. Good build quality is important for overall longevity of your mouse, and can also play a role in how comfortable it is to use. The glorious Model O- wireless feels well built overall, and doesn't suffer from some of the standout quality issues present on other older or larger models in the glorious lineup. However, it has its own minor issues. There's minimal left and right wobble in the left and right click buttons and the CPI button. Also, the body emits a faint creaking sound if you squeeze with enough force. Thankfully, these issues aren't noticeable during normal use. As its name implies, the glorious Model O- wireless connects wirelessly, but it has an included cable for charging and wired use. The glorious Model O- wireless uses the same USB-C paracord-like cable as the wired glorious Model O-. This cable retains some kinks from packaging, but it's very lightweight and flexible and glides very smoothly across the desks. Moving on to the mouse feet. The shape, location, thickness, and material of these feet contribute to how your mouse feels when you move it across your mousepad or desk. This mouse has 4 large medium-sized virgin grade PTFE mouse feet. They glide remarkably well on mouse pads or directly on desks. They're slightly thicker than average mouse feet, but they also have sharp corners which can dig into softer mouse pads at certain angles and cause drag if you press heavily on your mouse during gameplay. The glorious Model O- wireless has the same dimensions as the wired glorious Model O- and is designed for people with smaller hands using any grip type. The button placement is especially well suited for a palm grip. Some users have reported online that they would prefer if the side buttons were slightly closer to the front of the mouse. If you prefer a claw or fingertip grip, your personal experience will depend on how far forward you typically hold your mouse. The sensor is the essential component of your mouse. It's responsible for translating your movements into the cursor movements you see on screen. First up, CPI or DPI stands for counts per inch and relates to the sensitivity of your mouse. A wide CPI range with precise adjustment steps is important. Everyone has different sensitivity preferences, but most gamers prefer CPI settings between 100 and 4000. The glorious Model O- wireless has an extremely wide CPI range. You can adjust and set the CPI very precisely, which is great if you're very particular about your sensitivity. Next, liftoff distance is how far the sensor needs to be before it stops registering the surface beneath your mouse. A high liftoff distance means you have to lift your mouse up higher for it to stop tracking. A lower liftoff distance means your sensor stops tracking sooner as you lift and begin moving your mouse. The minimum liftoff distance on the glorious Model O- wireless is very low. If you have a smaller mouse pad or play on low CPI settings, you won't have to worry about sensor picking up any unwanted movement when you lift and reposition your mouse. The liftoff distance is also adjustable in the software. It allows you to toggle between a 1mm or 2mm preset. Pulling rate is measured in hertz and dictates how often the sensor reports its position to your computer. Typically, you'll want to use the highest polling rate possible as higher values result in smoother cursor movements. Like other mice in the glorious Model O family, this mouse supports polling rates up to 1000 Hz. This is the current standard for gaming mice and results in smooth cursor movements in-game. Click latency is a measure of how long it takes for your mouse click to be registered by your computer once you click it. A lower click latency can play a crucial role in how responsive your gaming experience feels, as any millisecond can make a difference between winning and losing. The Glorious Model O- wireless has great click latency that's even slightly lower than the wired Glorious Model O-. It's more than suitable for all game genres and delivers a very responsive experience in-game. The Glorious Model O- wireless also has an adjustable debounce setting. Debounce time is a software setting that limits how quickly you can register a second click after the first. By default, the setting is set at 10 milliseconds on this mouse. We conduct our latency tests with the lowest debounce settings, in this case 4 milliseconds. Setting your mouse to a lower debounce setting will deliver slightly lower click latency, but it will also increase the risk that a single click may register as a double click, especially as the switches get older. The Glorious Model O- wireless has 6 total buttons, all of which you can program using the customization software. It also has a dedicated CPI button behind the scroll wheel. By default, this button cycles between customizable CPI settings. Although this is a symmetrically shaped mouse, it only has side buttons on the left, so it isn't a true ambidextrous mouse. The original Glorious Model O suffered from a well-known scroll wheel issue, where the rubber exterior would sometimes move without the rest of the wheel, but this mouse does not have that issue. The Glorious Model O- wireless connects wirelessly with its USB receiver. Glorious advertises a battery life of up to 71 hours with the lighting effects turned off. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an internal compartment for storing the USB receiver when it's not in use. Moving on to software. Robust companion software can be helpful for customizing sensor specifics, button mapping, and adjusting RGB lighting. However, not all gamers will see it as necessary, and some mice have simple customization controls directly on the mouse. The Glorious Model O- wireless uses the Glorious Core software. It has a clean, easy-to-use interface and allows you to program macros, remap buttons, and adjust RGB lighting. You can also adjust various sensor and performance settings, including the debounce time and liftoff distance. Additionally, you can save custom settings to the onboard memory. So this brings us to the main question: should you buy this mouse? The Glorious Model O- wireless is a high-performance, ultra-lightweight option that makes a few significant improvements over its wired predecessor, not to mention the original Glorious Model O. One of its most remarkable achievements is that it's still extremely lightweight after adding wireless compatibility. At this point, only a handful of wireless mice are lighter, and nearly all of them are significantly more expensive. Altogether, this mouse is an outstanding choice if you have smaller hands and interested in a performant ultra-lightweight mouse without the price tag of some of the most premium gaming mice available, such as the Logitech G Pro X Superlight or the Final Mouse Starlight 12 series. If you're interested in this mouse but have larger hands, be sure to check out the full-size Glorious Model O, or its wireless version. Or for a mouse with a very similar shape and comparable performance but with a unique aesthetic, take a look at the Vancer BTL Gretza. It has heart and diamond shaped cutouts in its body instead of the more conventional honeycomb shaped cutouts on the Glorious. It's also available in a range of exciting colorways.